Hey, Dee, let's do that thing you're not supposed to do about podcasts, and let's talk about the weather.
Great idea. I'll start. It was cold this week here, and we had some more snow, and it's 28 right now, but it's going to go up to 50. Yay.
So we got cold as cold could be. On Tuesday,
We
it was
did.
-3, and it got up
Mm,
to 8. Yesterday was a high of
mm.
30, but today I think they said the high was 10, but the sun is shining, so I don't know.
Do you have snow on the ground still from your
Oh yeah,
last?
it never
Yeah,
it
it
started
never
to
went
thaw.
away.
It's still there, and then we got I'll call it a heavy dusting yesterday, and that's still out there. But how about Louisiana and Florida?
Yeah, what the heck? They got so much snow. That whole Gulf Coast area was just,
No
mm.
plows, no salt trucks. My sister sent me pictures of her two grandsons playing in the snow in their backyard in New Orleans.
Yeah, which I mean,
A lot of
it
snow. I
was
couldn't believe it.
it was like inches and inches, but there you go. So we better start this episode before people quit following us entirely as we give weather reports.
There you go. Well, we gave it coast to coast. Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden an acre and a half out of 7.5 acres in the country, but that's going to be smaller this year.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. I'm excited to start. How are you, Carol?
I am good. I went to Aldi last Sunday. So
I
this is
saw that.
Friday. We recorded last Saturday. I went to Aldi. They had the hyacinths on vase. So I bought one of each color because I was down that way at the Menards buying more poppy seeds,
Of
10
course you
cents a
were.
piece. But here's the thing. So when I went to Menards, there were none of the 10-cent packets of poppy seeds. They were out. And I'm
Oh
like,
no.
well, shoot. So I went to get something else and I came back and the lady had opened up a new display box to put up that was full of those poppy seeds
Hmm.
and it was still on the floor. And I'm like, you don't mind if I get some of these poppy seeds, do you?
And she thought you were crazy.
Yes, yes. And then she said, oh, when do you start seeds? And that
Oh.
can be a long-winded answer. And I said, the simple answer is different times because she wasn't really a
Hmm.
gardener. Anyway, I also water my house plants and I do have my seeds sorted into bins based on direct sow in the veggie garden, direct sow in the flower garden, winter sow, sow early inside for the veggie garden, early inside for the flower garden. There might be another category. And it made it easier to sort because I bought some plastic bins at Aldi that were on their aisle of shame, they call it, the Aldi finds. These really nice sage green baskets. So anyway, that's enough. That's
Maybe
enough of
you
what
could
I
take a
did.
picture of that for us.
Of those
All your
sage green
seeds.
baskets,
Well, with your seeds in them.
they're in piles in those baskets. So I'm using the term
Oh, I
sorted
see.
loosely
I see.
because I still have work to do, but I didn't want to show up at the podcast and say, oh, I still have to
You
sort
did
seeds.
nothing.
So they're in categories. I could take a picture for you, but do tell about your gardening week, Dee.
So I'm keeping the bird feeders filled. Bill is supposed to come home tomorrow, which is Saturday. Hooray.
Hooray.
And I'm seeing a lot of new birds this year at the feeder, red-winged blackbirds, more doves, two different woodpeckers. And I wonder if it's this new southern bird feed I've been buying that's
Cool. Maybe.
From Katie, which is Katee. I will link to that. It's an Instagram link. So let me explain quickly for those who don't know. A lot of bird feed has D3 in it, right? For the birds. We've talked about this before. So that
Yes.
means lanolin, which means sheep wool, which is an issue for me. So to find bird feed, I just went on Amazon and started searching all the bird feeds and looking at all the ingredients. That's an easy way for me to do it. And this brand in this particular mix it said attracts more different birds to your garden. And it is a nice little mix. And so the nice thing is it comes in, not too big packages. I don't know what size that is. Maybe 8 pound. I mean, not
Right.
heavy, 10 pound. So that's going to be my new bird feed because doesn't have any additives, has a nice mix of seeds, not as expensive as black oil sunflower seed. So there's that. And then I've been keeping my houseplants watered, and I've been looking at this polka dot begonia, and it's still having some leaf tip burn.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's because it's getting too dry. So I'm going to take it out of this pot that it's in and put it in a glazed pot. That's actually in my garden commissions, but I've been keeping them watered and watching them all. This one dries out too fast. And I think it's a couple of things. It's got coir, as it's, you can tell coir versus peat moss, which is fine.
Right. Right.
But it's in a cheap kind of plastic pot that's supposed to have an automatic waterer. It doesn't work very well. So I'm going to
No,
move
they
it to
never do.
glazed pots. It's just too small and the plant's gotten really big. And so I just want it to be even happier than it is. So I'm going to put it in that really good chicken manure potting soil and go on. And then let's see, what else did I say? Oh, I started some nasturtium seeds and I started some Swiss chard seeds, which it's a really cool dark leaf, red stemmed Swiss chard. I'll have to look up the name. And then that's all, I guess. I'm keeping the greenhouse warm.
Yeah. And it says you unfroze the fountain.
Yeah, the fountain was partially frozen, the big red one, because, it got down to like 1, 2, several days. Even though it has heaters in it, it can't
Uh-huh.
keep it completely. So I worked on it with an ice pick yesterday carefully, and then I added some more water to it from the greenhouse. It was warmer. I added it with a 5 gallon bucket. And then the other fountain that's on the deck had gotten clogged up. And so the pump had, so I pulled all the gunk away from it and threw it over the edge. So the birds can now take little baths again.
That is excellent.
It's all about the birds.
It's all about the
Okay.
birds. Play
Play
favorites.
favorites. You first.
So, of course, I'm going to say it's those Aldi hyacinths. Now, this year, so they were $4.99, so they're up about $1, but they're in a bigger vase. It's just a little bit taller, and it's got a taller top part to it.
Good.
I have pink, white, and blue, and they are as big as I've ever seen, but they are flopped over. But
Yeah, they flop.
I left the plastic wrap on the top part, and so that's keeping them from just like outright falling out. But anyway,
So
that's my
in
favorite.
in my Dutch hyacinth book, it's all
Yeah.
written in Dutch from the Netherlands. It shows some of those old antique vases, and they actually had rings that came up that were brass that attached to the top of where that bulb face part
Right.
is, and then they held it in place. And they don't make, I don't know where you'd find those now,
No.
but occasionally you can put a stick down in there if you've got room. But the truth is they just fall over, and I prop them up against each other when I have them. I'm not doing that this year. My allergies are still crazy, so I'm not going to do that. So my favorite this week are the nasturtiums, which I can't see yet. I'm dreaming of them, and it's
I would
okay to
dream
do
of them
that.
too. Yes, I have some nasturtium
So
seeds.
AAS. So my favorite last year was Bloody Mary. It was beautiful, and I do have pictures of it, and we'll put them in. I'll send one to you right after this to put in the newsletter. And then nicely, AAS sent me the 2025 winners, and they were baby gold, baby red, and baby yellow. And I'll be honest, I'm going to sow those this week, and I am going to put them in my pots along with my
Nice.
pansies and violas. I just think that baby gold and baby yellow, there's something about just that dreaming of seeds, that
Yes.
quote that's everywhere.
Yes. Well, and is that the Josephine News quote?
Yes, about it begins with a dream. Isn't that
Yeah.
her quote? Yeah.
Doesn't, yeah, 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 it is. Yeah. I wrote about her a long time ago. Anyway,
It's a great quote.
we have a question of the week. This was sent to us from Memphis, Tennessee.
Yep.
Have you tried the 10-minute soak in hydrogen peroxide prior to sowing for any seeds? Saw it recommended for peppers. So
I have
my
never
answer
done
is,
this. I've never heard of it. I have no idea.
So when I do a search for this, because I had never done it before either, I put the like hydrogen peroxide seed soak, and then I put the word cooperative extension
Yeah,
because then I feel like I'm getting a legit source. I did not find
right.
anything in the first few pages, but the gardeningknowhow.com site, which is actually pretty good, they do have a whole article on using hydrogen peroxide, and hydrogen peroxide is antibacterial wipe, I guess. It's an used to clean things. And
Yeah.
so it's supposedly when you're using it for sowing seeds, it's said to increase oxygen, which facilitates sprouting. And they said to use a 3% solution for 30 minutes. There was
I am
one
not doing
study,
that.
I know. They said there was one study, which they did not link to, that said they had several findings. And so, again, I've been gardening. Let's see, I'm 66 now. I've been gardening since I was 2. I have never, ever sown by soaking in hydrogen peroxide first. And so I am not going to do it. And the whole reason that they would do it is to act as a disinfectant in case they thought there was some sort of like the bacterial wilt or something on those seeds.
Right.
And then the article goes on to talk about is hydrogen peroxide safe for plants, and talks about how in 1977 it was registered as a disinfectant on plants, including fruits and vegetable crops. And by September 2022, 6 pesticide products contain hydrogen peroxide. Anyway, we'll link to this article, and so people can read more about it. Again, I knew
Carol.
that.
Okay, so yes, we'll link to all that. But I'm looking through Instagram trying to find who is that. She's young and she's just funny as all get out, and she's a gardener, and she posted today about seed starting soil
Yeah,
versus just doing your soil and seeds. Her name's Brittany or something. I don't know. I can't remember her name because I'm terrible with names, but I feel like she would say, because what her deal was is she goes, I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but you plant seeds in plain soil outside and they do okay. And she goes, so why would you absolutely have to have sterile seed starting soil? Why wouldn't you just use a good quality soil and potting soil? And you and I have talked about that a lot
oh
over
yeah,
the
oh
years,
yeah.
which I hate the sterile seed starting soil because it floats everywhere and it drives me crazy. I have some, but it just drives me crazy. I need something to hold things down. Well, I feel about that like I feel about this hydrogen question.
We don't need it.
We really probably don't need it. We probably don't need the mycorrhizae that you soak your pea and bean seeds in either. I did that crap when I first started, and it was a pain in the patootie. And you know what I do now? I go outside, I scratch in the dirt a little bit, I put down my pea seeds, and guess what happens, Carol?
They germinate, come up, and you get peas.
Yes, yes,
The point of it is, and
yes.
so I went 66 years in 4 days without ever hearing about using hydrogen peroxide on
True.
seeds.
Yeah.
And so, well, or whenever this question came in last week or whatever. But
And I want to be clear, the questioner, thank you for the question.
no,
That's not
we
me being
appreciate the
emotional of
question.
it. The
But
question's awesome.
the thing you have to not worry about, think about is if it becomes a trend on social media, it's probably not a good idea. And unless you, again, do a search, put the word cooperative extension or something like that, find
Yep.
good sources, and then you may learn something. And, we've learned something today, which is we're not doing it. But if somebody asks us, we'll say, we're not doing it.
Yeah, we now know. And I actually have a question for next week, and I'm just going to gently tease it. I got a question yesterday about nematodes for ticks. And I was like, huh?
Huh?
Huh? So this friend of mine, and I'll just say who it is because she follows us on here, Vicky Lynn. Thank you for the question. And she's researching it, and now I am. So that's our question next week, which is going to be another one of these, stump the chump deals, because the truth is, no way can you ever know everything about gardening.
You can't? I've been trying so hard, Dee.
Me too. for since I
Just
was
kidding.
about 15.
I haven't been trying that hard. I'm going to do
I
a
think I
quote.
tried harder when I was younger. Shall we do a quote and go on?
Yes, I'm going to. Plants want to grow. They are on your side as long as you are reasonably sensible. Anne Warham, and she is the bad
Wear
tempered
'em.
gardener. Wareham.
She's hilarious.
She has a Substack and she also is a regular contributor to Garden Rant. She lives in Wales.
She does, and she's really actually quite friendly. Been her friend on Instagram and everywhere for a long time. So, just as an aside, I just heard from my handyman. He is coming at 2 p.m.
Okay, so we can get this thing
So
done
we
well
can
ahead of
keep
time.
going. Good.
There you
So
go.
our flower this week, and also, can I just say that quote goes back to our previous question? I rest my case. Flowers, year of the Monstera, which does bloom, but most people grow up for the leaves.
Well, the National Garden Bureau has this as their house plant of the year.
Yeah, okay. It was really popular
It is.
last
Now,
year.
do you have a Monstera, Dee?
I did. It got mealybugs. I threw it away because I fought them for about a year. And I said, you know what? I don't want this spread in other places. And it was huge. And I'll be honest, it takes a lot of work to have a Monstera. You need to prop it up with those moss poles, which there will be a link to this week in the Substack. Several people asked for it, and I've already put it in our show notes. So
Yes.
there you go. How about
I,
you? Did you ever have one?
no, I don't have one. I never have had one as far as I
They're
know.
huge.
I have a philodendron called Minima, which is sold as a Monstera lookalike. And I
Okay.
bought it as a little plant up at the greenhouse. It's probably in a 3 or 4 inch pot and it's in a slightly bigger pot. It's been sitting on the edge of my tub that I never use in
Oh
the.
yeah, they sell this plant everywhere now.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, some people call it a Monstera minima. That's
Yes.
interesting.
But it's not.
Huh.
It's a philodendron.
It's a philodendron. Yeah.
I
It's
do need to
cute.
get a moss covered pole for it. So I appreciate the link.
I mean, okay, and let me just point out that's a small company that makes those that are sold on Amazon. I had no idea. And I think he's an immigrant from Vietnam.
Huh.
Very interesting. They send you a little thank you card in with it. And I do love my moss pole with my philodendron over here to the right. It looks really good now. Makes me happy.
So Monsteras, according to the
Oh, back
National
to
Garden Bureau,
Monsteras.
yes, they are found in the tropical regions of the Americas where they grow to amazing heights. Some of them can get up to 90 feet tall.
I
Hence, as you
believe it.
said, this can become a very large houseplant.
Mine was extremely large. It sat over here in the corner, which was a great place for it. But then it got sick, and I was like, I am really tired of messing with you. But, I'm all about your philodendron, though.
Yeah, if you live in USDA zone 10 plus, this can be outside in your garden year round.
Yeah, which might be easier to grow. But didn't people kind of go crazy? Isn't there like,
Oh, people went extremely crazy over
yeah, it's the
Monsteras.
variegated one, and the variegated and the Swiss cheese
Yes.
ones
Yeah.
that everybody just went nuts about.
Right. There's one called Thai Constellation that everybody's like, oh, because it had green and cream marbling on the leaves. So that's a big one. I think there was a pink Monstera. I don't know all the details. I'm looking at the National Garden Bureau site that people just went gaga over. And when we say gaga, we're talking
Like
hundreds of dollars.
$150
Oh, more
for
than
a
that.
cutting, just for a cutting.
Yes.
That's not even a rooted plant. No,
So
thank you.
here's some fast facts, some did you knows. So in the practice of feng shui, they believe that Monstera deliciosa brings positive energy and abundance to a space.
Okay.
They can grow slowly, but will live for decades. So if you want a house plant forever,
They will last forever unless they get mealybugs, and then that's a real bummer.
all those splits and holes in the leaves are called fenestration. There's your word for the day. Oh, look at the fenestration in those leaves. So next time you're like someplace where they're selling house plants, you can use that and sound like you are somebody that knows something.
Yeah, there you go. I do like the green and white ones. I think they're pretty. And I think they've been tissue cultured now, just like the pink princess philodendron. you
Uh-huh.
know, and I
Yeah.
think you can get them for a reasonable price now. Back in the day, they were selling for $150 for
Oh,
a
when
cutting.
I was talking about a pink monstera, I think it was a pink philodendron. My bad.
Pink
My bad.
Princess is so pretty. There may be a pink Monstera too. I don't know.
Now,
I'm not a houseplant.
Monstera deliciosa translate
Yes,
to
back to that.
delicious monstrosity for its large leaves and tasty fruit.
Ah, well, there you go.
So,
Well, so there's a lady on Instagram. I say it's a lady. It might be a man. I don't know. It's called Monstera Madness, and they have a lot of information about them.
we will
They're
link to
so
that
they.
Instagram.
It was very, very. It's a cute one, and it's not a huge account. So there you go.
So, and then we'll link to the National Garden Bureau because they have information on how to care for it. They like bright, filtered, indirect sunlight. Direct sun can burn the leaves.
Yeah.
This is one if you want to grow under lights. Must be a big light if it's a big plant.
I mean, mine was, after 2 years, mine was huge.
Needs,
And it sat in a corner of the room where it got filtered east sun.
yeah.
I was
It
very
needs,
happy.
it needs to be kept well drained. It does not like wet feet.
Nope.
Needs support like a moss pole, as you said. And I need a
Or
moss pole for my
two
fake
of them.
Monstera. Water consistently. Feed with a balanced fertilizer monthly, such as 111. That's very balanced, and that's hardly anything.
Yeah, I don't.
Which I throw a little pinch of fertilizer in my water every time I water my houseplants, and it does make a big difference. Hence, see the how big that bird of paradise is behind me.
It's very happy. Yeah.
It's very happy. Look, it's got a new leaf coming up. I'll have to take a picture of it, even though that's not our plant. Does like it warm, 65 to 85. So if you're one of those people who likes a really cool house in the wintertime, and there's some people that like to keep their house pretty cold, that would not be good for your Monstera.
No, because it's a
Uh,
tropical plant with great big leaves.
and because it has big leaves, you do need to dust it.
Yeah, you have to dust it and people polish them and you have to dust the stems. It's a house plant that needs a little love and attention.
It can get spider mites, mealybugs, aphids, or thrips. You can
Gross.
snip leaves to control the plant size, or obviously we remove dead. Healthy prune leaves can be put in a vase for a pretty display. That is true. And
Very
then
pretty.
it has aerial roots, and that's where it helps to sometimes miss these plants and tie them to that support pole. I
Hmm.
I would think that after reading this, you know how I'm kind of an impressionable person, that I would think, oh, I need to get a Monstera. But I think I'm going to be content with my fake Monstera, the philodendron.
So I'm on Etsy and I'm looking at their Monstera page, and there's variegated Monstera alba, very pretty, lots and lots of white leaves. There's Monstera delicioso electrolyte, which is really striking, greens and oranges, greens and yellows. There's Monstera deliciosa half moon, which is half white, half green. So there are lots and lots of qualities, and you can now get them for a decent price. And if I can find it, there's a really good article video from CBS
Uh
where they
huh.
went and interviewed two guys who they opened a house plant sales place, and they talk about that tissue culturing and how it has revolutionized plants so you can sell them as house plants and not sell them for so much money. And the person interviewing them was like, "Do you regret that?" And they were really kind of fun. They were like, "No, because this gets the plants in more people's hands. And we want people
Yes.
to grow things." So they're true gardeners, is what I thought when I
Right.
was
Right.
listening. You know,
Yeah.
people who just aren't in it for the money. And they had really nice house plants. I'm not trying to sell them to anybody. I don't even remember their names, but I'll
But
find that deal. It was good.
well, let's talk a minute about buying houseplants off of Etsy or starts of plants off of Etsy.
Yeah, be
So
careful. Reputable.
reputable. Read the
Yeah.
reviews, read the reviews, read the reviews. Google those
Yeah.
people's name.
Or
And then
just go to
also
Costa Farms.
don't don't order in the wintertime. It is too risky to have a plant shipped in the wintertime, especially to places like here. and and
Hmm.
and now Louisiana. Kidding. Uh, but anyway, it's risky to ship tropicals in the wintertime, and I think a reputable place won't
Well,
do
and
it.
one of the best places to buy plants, if you're going to buy some, is Plants by Mail. They sell them. There's another place too.
Logi's greenhouse is a good place to buy
Yeah,
it.
Logis is great. I've bought lots of things from them. So the Spruce has a great little article here about best places to buy online if you're going to buy online. And they've got 15 top picks. And I mean, again, read the reviews, but I think this is pretty good. So I'm going to give it
Okay.
to you to
Yeah,
put in
give me
our
that link
notes.
and I'll put that in there. And
Shall
now
we
I think,
talk about something else now?
well, yeah, if you do a quote, we can talk about the vegetable topic.
Great. I thought I was pretty cool until I realized plants can eat the sun and poop out air. That's by Jim Bug, and it made me laugh.
It is funny.
Okay,
So
so our vegetable of the week, we're going
back
back to herbs. It's
sage.
sage, which is Salvia officinalis, cooking
Yes,
sage.
cooking sage. And
What do you want to say
so,
about it? We've talked about it before.
oh, it's pretty easy to grow. I think it is surprising to some people that it is a perennial, zones 5 to 10. You grow the leaves
Yep.
for flavoring, and like most plants where you're growing leaves for flavoring, you don't want it to flower because that takes the oils away from the leaves and less flavorful. But if you let it flower, apparently the butterflies and bees will be very happy and love it to death.
I have never seen mine flower out here, ever. Never.
I would say ditto.
I've never seen it flower and I've grown it for years. Now, it does get woody like lavender. And so
Yes,
you need to chop it back every spring so that you don't just end up with, because really it's a small shrub and it's native
right.
place, just like lavender is. And so you need to cut it back so that you get fresh leaves. I love it with chicken, which is good since I eat a lot of chicken these days.
Yep.
And it's just a great plant. There are ornamental varieties. There's there are some that are you're going to talk about in a minute, but the variegated varieties are very beautiful. The best place I've found to buy them locally is a little greenhouse called Big Creek Nursery up in Stillwater. They have lots of interesting varieties of herbs, and that's where I
Right.
actually go buy my herbs if I'm going to go replace one.
Well, and the other thing I would say about sage, so I generally just have a pot of sage and then at the end of the year I let it go. I don't try to
Right.
I don't try to
Mine
put
just
it in the
sits in my
ground.
potager. They like very good, very well drained soil.
Yes, and I did grow some that I planted out or I got a sample or something. So I do have one out there. I'm anxious to see if it actually does make it through the winter. But like you mentioned, there's tricolor, which is more
Uh-huh.
ornamental. Pu- pupurence, pupurесcent. I don't know. There's a deep
Where are
purple
you?
leaf. I'm
Oh,
looking
I've grown
on,
that one.
yeah, I'm looking on the spruce site that we are going to link to. Aurea has soft yellow leaves and purple flowers. It's called
I've
golden
never grown that
sage.
one.
Have you grown
Oh,
pineapple
golden
sage?
sage. Oh, yeah. I have grown that one. I'm sorry. You're talking about a different one now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not culinary. So we're talking about lots of sages. Yes. I've grown Aria many times. It's probably my favorite of is that Salvia elegans? Is that right?
I don't know. It's just listed here by the name of Aria. I don't know if it's got the name.
Let me look up just, yeah, Salvia elegans. And so Salvia elegans comes in Aurora, it's pineapple sage, and it also is sold as Golden Delicious. And then there's the straight version of it, which has regular dark green leaves. Here's the cool thing about this plant. Yeah, it smells good, it makes a good tea, it makes a lot of leaves, but in late summer, it blooms this glorious red and it lasts for about 2 months until freeze. And it does not overwinter even in my climate in zone 7, but it is an extraordinary plant which starts from a small plant, 4 inch, and makes a great big huge kind of almost a shrub by the time the end of the season.
And
Of the
I
two, Aria is prettier because it has lime
I
green leaves.
I actually, now that you mention it, you said it's Salvia elegans.
Yeah, elegans.
I grew that one and I bought it for the yellowish leaves.
Yep.
And I hadn't grown it before, I'll admit it. And I thought, is this thing ever going to bloom? Because it was just
Takes
yellow.
forever.
It
Yeah.
was 2 feet tall in the container, and it finally had in late, I'm going to say mid fall, it finally had red blooms. And the last of the hummingbirds did enjoy them. But I thought, well, take your time, people. Take your
Yeah, it
time.
needs that it has something to do with daylight, I bet, and also heat. It needs all that heat to get to its original size. Now, I like it around my red fountain. I've grown it with the Mexican feather grass around my red fountain. It is striking, and I do have a picture of it. So if you want to put it in the newsletter,
Yeah, we do want to put
I
picture.
I use it in talks because it is a beautiful plant. So
Yes.
now
So
you're going to
I
talk
grew it.
about clary sage. Is that
Yeah,
next?
we talked about this last summer.
Yeah.
Salvia scleria, and I went down a
Mhm.
rabbit hole. It's a biennial, and I did winter sow it last year, and I had several seedlings, and so they're in 2 spots out in the garden in 2 different flower beds.
It's a
And
great plant.
I've been warned that it is an aggressive self sower.
It is. Yeah.
So what I think I'm going to do in the spring, I'm going to take the plants, which this will be their second year. I'm going to move them to the back border of the vegetable garden where I normally grow zinnias because I'm trying to get that to be a bunch of self sowers and biennials back there, hollyhocks. And so I think clary sage is going to go back there.
Good
And I'm
place
anxious
for
to
it.
see it bloom.
You'll like it, I think. It's very pretty.
Yes. So
So
I did
anything else you want to
do
say
that.
about sage?
I think that's it. I mean, I don't have much more to say about it. I
I
mean,
did
I
a
just,
blog post last year called Year of the Salvia. It has some sages in there because salvias are sages.
these are all,
Sages are salvias. Big group of plants. But anyway, there you go. You want to do the next quote?
I do want
We'll
to
go
do
on
the
to the
next quote.
book. A
Once
beautiful
you learn
book.
to read, you will be forever free. Frederick Douglass. And that is true.
One of my favorite heroes.
Because people are
Uh,
missing out that don't read. I've been reading these stories or articles about how,
People don't read anymore.
well,
Some
kids are
people.
getting to college and they can't sit down and read a novel. They can't read a whole book.
It's because their attention span is split.
Right. And so I like to train my attention span to read again, to read whole novels because if you don't, you're missing out. I just wanted to put a plug in there for sit down, move all the electronic devices away and read.
Well, that's what I have to do to read a novel. I have to put my phone in a different place. So I don't, and I turn off my notifications.
On the
All right. So
bookshelf.
our book this week is Earthly Utopias, Sacred Gardens of the World by Yolanda Zapatera. And you asked for this book, and I'm really glad you did.
Yes, we'd like to, before we get started, we want to thank the publisher, Francis Lincoln, for providing us with review copies of this beautiful book. I read about it in American Gardener magazine from the American
It's
Horticultural
gorgeous.
Society. So again, if you have not joined American Horticultural Society, you're not getting American Gardener, which is an excellent magazine. So there's
Right.
that plug. What do you think, Dee?
Well, I think it's a beautiful book, and I have seen like at least one of these gardens in here. So it's all about gardens that have some sort of spiritual or religious significance. Or, I mean, because there's one that, I mean, like Villandry, I guess, did it used to be an abbey? It might have been. So
Yes.
there are abbey gardens, but there are also, there's Italian gardens, Spanish gardens. It is amazing to me. Yeah, Alhambra's in here. So Alhambra wasn't it a palace garden? There's a whole series on Monty Don going and visiting Spanish gardens, and Alhambra was in it. Beautiful, beautiful place. Lots of reflecting pools, especially if you're doing so. Okay, gosh, I'm so excited about the book. I'm getting all over the place.
You are all over the place. Now let's just calm
You go
down a
ahead.
minute.
Calm down,
So,
Dee.
when you look at the description, so it says it includes all kinds of gardens that, as you said, had a religious or spiritual significance. This includes functional gardens created by monks for sanctuary, medicine, and food, the sacred bathing pools of Tirta Ganga in Bali, and I'm going to butcher these 4 names. The Kari Sansui Garden at Rowan-ji, informed by Zen Buddhism. Many are ancient sites full of myth. Others have been lovingly restored from ruin. And some have been newly created in recent years in a bid to get closer to the divine through traditional religion or the worship of nature itself. In Earthly Utopia, we visit cathedrals, monasteries, and ruined abbeys, temples, mausoleums, and shrines, forests, islands, and deserts in search of these sacred gardens. And each one serves as a prime example of how religion, philosophy, and spirituality can inform and inspire beautiful garden design. So,
Yeah.
it
So
is a coffee table
this
book.
is going to sit on my coffee table, was what I was going to say, along with another book called Devotion that I bought Bill for Christmas that didn't get here until January. But Devotion is about devotional practices all over the world. And
Cool.
this National Geographic photographer, and he's done his own photography and he's written lots of books, and I can't remember his name right now, but he went around and observed devotions all over the world. And this book fits in because it's all about devotional gardens.
Could you give me a link to that devotions book? I'm interested.
Yes,
in
I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to do that. And you go ahead and talk about it some more if you want to, and I'll look up his name. There's a lot of cloister gardens in here.
Yes, but it's all kinds of spiritual gardens. So, on one page, there's the pagan tarot garden in Tuscany, Italy. And then the next section is a cloister garden in the Netherlands. And, it's just very interesting. So it covers all religions, all kinds of sacred practices, beautiful photographs. I think reading through this, you can get an idea of how, you can make parts of your own garden sacred or bring in some of those elements
I think
into
you
your
could
own
too.
garden. Anyway,
I'm still looking for that book. I think it's very hard to get, even though it is brand new. So I don't understand why.
Well,
but
it could, maybe it's not on the big A. If we go to bookshop.
It is on the big A. Okay, so this is what it's called. Devotion, Love, and Spirituality, and it's by a man named Steve McCurry, and it was published in late 2024. And it fits right in with this about earthly utopias. I think the book is wonderful, and I think having these in my home makes me want to look back at just how people have devoted themselves to God as they see God in the world. And there are some Kyoto gardens in here too.
Oh,
that's one of my dreams.
I'm on that
to go
page.
To Japan. Isn't it beautiful?
They are obviously showing it with cherry blossoms in bloom. And we talked all about that when we had that other book, and we talked about cherry blossoms. So anyway, I'm going to take this to Garden Club too next month, because I always bring a book every month. I think I'm going to take this one and then let them all drool over it.
It is so beautiful. And I don't, what's on the cover? Do you know?
The cover picture?
It's got to be Muslim because it's got all of this gorgeous inlay.
Yes.
And it's just unbelievable. The cover is so beautiful that you want to just walk right into that path, and then there's a rill.
It's a garden in Iran. That's all. It says,
yeah, it's gorgeous.
Isfahan, Iran. Yeah,
and that's something I learned from our friend who wrote the book on American potages, and she talked about the history of Islamic gardens versus Christian gardens, monastic gardens, and how at the center of Islamic gardens is water. And at the center of monastic gardens is often the statue. So it's a cool, this is cool.
This is a very good book. And we are delighted to have review copies of it. And like you said, it's going to be sitting there for a while. There's even one, there's a Cleveland Cultural Gardens here in the Midwest, which is obviously in Cleveland, Ohio, which looks lovely.
That's cool.
So anyway, that is the book, Earthly Utopias, Sacred Gardens of the World by Yolanda Zapatera. You can tell we're excited about it.
I'm not excited about this squirrel that is climbing up to the post to get my bird feeder. I'm just saying. They're really hard right now. They're really, really hard.
There was a squirrel sitting on the peak above my garage the other day when I drove up, and it was like it owned the place. sitting there like the king or queen of the
Yeah.
house.
There's another one climbing a tree over here, pretending it doesn't realize there's a squirrel over here on the deck. He's sending him in first. All right. Shall I do the next quote?
Yes, because I want to talk about a robin.
Okay. To read a poem in January is as lovely as to go for a walk in June. Jean Paul. All right.
That's a
Talk about
lovely
a
quote,
robin.
too. Don't you think that's a lovely quote?
I absolutely think that's a lovely quote. Okay. What about the robin?
Well, when I went to Aldi, I had to park. I went on a Sunday, which is like insane. People like me that are retired should not go to Aldi's on Saturdays and Sundays when the working people. No, no. Anyway, I had to park
No.
on the road by the road, and there was a oak tree there, and I thought that's interesting that they planted an oak tree. But
Yeah.
anyway, I came out and there's a robin sitting on the side mirror on the car, big fat robin, and I'm like, "Hello." And it sat there, and I opened the back, and I put my groceries in the back, and I leaned over. It's still there. Hello. And I thought, will you stay there long enough for me to take your picture? But it flew off, and I thought, oh, that's nice. Big fat robins all over this place right now. Anyway, rabbit hole. I mean, sorry, dirt.
So we found this really cool article, and it's called Meet Tom Brown, the Apple Hunter. And Tom Brown retired, and
Yes.
then he became very, very, very interested in apples. And he has personally tracked down 1,000 forgotten varieties of apple.
Yes. Which is, he was used to be a chemical engineer and he didn't really know what he was going to do in retirement, but
Right.
he went to a farmer's market and then,
In Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
exactly. And it's like he hadn't thought about apples much, but he was very fascinated by the colors, the textures, the taste, the names of those apples. And so off he goes in search of all these seedlings. And he says in here, he spent his evenings with the 1905 edition of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's The Nomenclature of the Apple, where he was shocked to learn that there are about 7,000 varieties of apples, each with its own distinguishing characteristics. By the time he had recovered what he was looking for originally was something called the Harper seedling, he had found and identified hundreds of additional varieties as well. It's
So, in connection with this, I'm going to share the Reddit group who talk about apples incessantly. It's a group on Reddit and they talk about apples and they are everything apple. And there's some experts on there about apples and they tell you which apples are in season and which ones are good. And a bunch of them are heirloom apple people who grow heirlooms or know where to find heirlooms. And they're big fans of farmers markets. Now, I will say in Oklahoma, we don't grow a lot of apples. We don't have the right climate for it. And we
uh-huh.
also have cedar apple rust, which is a problem because of eastern red cedars, which are not even cedars, they're junipers. But anyway, so you want an area that has cool nights like North Carolina, Washington State, Oregon, places up north a little bit. And remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Honeycrisp
Yes.
and how bad it had become? That's
Yes.
discussed a lot on the Apple group. But the other day, I saw these gorgeous Honeycrisp apples at Natural Grocer, and they were organic. So I knew they had been picked at the right time. And they are
Right?
in season right now. We're right at the end. We're now in Cosmic Crisp Envy season. But anyway, so I bit into one of those suckers and I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. They are the best. I mean, they are an extraordinary apple. You know how I talked about in that article we had about how they have more cells and the way the air is in the cells and bigger cells and all that is true. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Brown because him finding all of this genetic diversity helps apple hybridizers, whether it's a modern
Yes.
apple or an older apple. And you wouldn't believe how people talk about Arkansas Black. That's a
Really?
very popular apple in the apple community. Yeah.
So you bring up Reddit groups and I will
I
stumble
like
across
Reddit.
them. I need to get more into Reddit because there's probably groups in
Okay,
there that I would enjoy
let's
being a part of.
let's just say this about Reddit. So I started following Reddit because there's some alpha gal groups on there and some mass cell groups, right?
Right.
And my son said, "What? You're on the Reddit?" And I said, "Just on these certain groups." And he goes, "Mom, Reddit has some bad rabbit holes." He said, "Do not go down those bunny trails." And I said, "I will not go down those bunny trails." It's funny how he
No, I
tries to
was just
protect
going
me.
to look for
There's some
maybe,
weirdos on Reddit. I'm just saying.
I was just going to look for like pansies and violas and things like that. I wasn't going
Oh,
to
I
go.
bet you there's a pansy viola group. I'm part of a bouquet of the day group. That's fun. I'm part of a zinnia group. That's fun too. So,
Anyway, that,
it's fun.
oh my gosh,
Dip in, dip out. But the Apple group, I have to say, has been extremely helpful because now I know what's in season, Carol.
that is good. That is
Yeah.
good. Okay. Well, let's talk about real rabbit holes when I do a quote. Plants are like people. They're all different and a little bit strange. John Kedoffs. Keyhode. I don't know what that's how
I
to
don't know
spell
how
his
you
name.
pronounce that man's name.
I don't either. But anyway,
Keyhode.
rabbit holes.
So, you wanted me to do mine really quickly and then you can do
Sure.
yours?
Yeah, they're
Okay,
not very
mine really
deep.
quickly is I went down the meta rabbit hole and everybody's going, "Oh no." So I boosted a post on Instagram. I occasionally do this if I really want to get some information out, and nothing happened. And it was just acting weird. So I tried another one, acted weird. I checked my account to see if I had done something that upset Meta. It's so easy to do. And no. So I recently had gotten my blue check mark back because I decided, you know what, if I ever need some help from them, they're much more helpful, you know? And so, and I do have 24,000 followers, so I do two-step verification. Let's
Right.
just say that ahead of the time. Everyone, no matter how many followers you have, get two-step verification on all your social media accounts because people come in and steal your stuff. We have a good friend, Marianne, who had her Instagram account stolen. So
Terrible.
that's my first tip. Secondly, that blue check mark is not for everyone because it costs $14 a month. But I'm glad I did it now because I was in the meta rabbit hole for a couple of hours yesterday getting actual help from a human. A
That's
human.
amazing.
Amazing. I just went right on there, did some clicking around, found where I needed to go. They texted first, they tried the bot. I was like, "No, bot, I don't want you. You cannot just answer my easy question. This is hard." Finally got a human who texted back and forth. And then he said, "I don't think we can solve this with a text. So why don't we call you?" I was like, "What? Meta, call me?" Yes, they
Yeah.
called me. And so then I got on with Jules. Thank you, Jules. And we got on there and she goes, "You know what? I think this is our glitch." And I was like, "What? Meta admit they did something wrong? Hooray." And so we both said something. And guess what? All of a sudden, my boosted post started working like gangbusters again. So there you go.
That is
That's
very
my meta
good.
rabbit hole. What was yours?
So I did dig out of the rabbit hole of Anna Gilman Hill, who is the latest lost lady of garden writing. We talked a little bit about her last week and how she was the original owner of Grey Gardens, but we won't go down that rabbit hole again.
Ooh.
Anyway, she was interesting. She's an interesting person. And then I did start my big Lego project, Dee.
The real excitement. The real excitement.
I bought the botanical garden, which is that gigantic greenhouse.
Yeah, it looks like Q. Like the greenhouse is a Q.
Yes, and it has about 4,000 parts divided into 29 bags plus 4 bags of like the glass part. So
When did that set you back?
I've done, one
She
doesn't
doesn't want,
talk.
she doesn't want to talk about that.
People can just
Uh-huh.
go look up what it is and
It's a
see what,
conservatory, and I really want it, but it has how many parts?
well, it has almost 4,000 parts. They're divided into 29 bags, as I was saying before. You're like, how much did that set you back? Plus 4 bags of the window parts. And I put together the first 3 bags, and I'm just going to put a little story out on Instagram when I finish a bag that. So my goal is to do a bag a day, and at that rate, it'll take me about a month to finish it. So we'll see.
I mean, you were really getting along yesterday. I told you it looked like a racetrack. And by the way, everybody, she's posting this in her stories on Instagram. So we
Yes.
can see the progress. And that's fun. That is really fun.
So anyway, and then I do listen to audiobooks while I'm doing that. So, or I talk to you on the phone, one or the other.
So,
So,
garden commissions.
so I do believe that by the end of next week, I hope I have winter sown what I'm going to winter sow. My winter sowing is out of control. I looked at what I have in the winter sow bin in the sunroom, and I'm like, that's a lot of seeds. I'm going to take care of the
That's a
house
lot of
plants.
seeds.
I'm going to
Yeah.
sow some more microgreens. I'm going to stay warm. How about you?
I forgot to mention that I sowed my nasturtium seeds with Maddie. So I put it on my story,
Oh,
but it
that's
won't be here
cute.
by the
Yeah,
time.
nice big
Yeah,
seed.
it's a cute little video. Yeah, I thought big seeds, easy to use. It was funny though, because I said, here, put one in each square because they're the big squares, you know?
Right.
She goes, I think we're going to do two. And she put two in each square. And then I watered the soil before we did it. And
Uh,
then then she goes, Gigi, I want to water next time. So she watered next time and it was just funny. But you have to have a lot of patience when you're sowing seeds with a 5-year-old.
you
Anyway,
do.
that brings me to what I'm doing this week. I'm sowing more nasturtium seeds by myself. And I'm going to check on plants in the potager to just see how my kale seed that I threw down on top of the snow is doing, and keep the fountains full, keep the birds happy, keep the indoor plants happy, and then file my new seeds that came in my books. She was very impressed, by the way, by my little seed deals. And she goes, I want to sow. She said, and she says words like this because she's a bright little thing. She goes, I want to sow these zinnia seeds. And I said, it's not time yet, baby doll. And she goes, not time yet. Okay. And then she was like, I want to sow these. And I don't know, some other plant that it wasn't time. I said, no, we just have to file these. It's not quite time yet. I said, how about nasturtiums? So we did nasturtiums.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, that is the end of this week's episode. We want to thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
And if you subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast a day early and links to all these products we've been talking about. Some are affiliate links that help us pay for the podcast.
If you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or if you want, you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout, or you can make a one-time donation through PayPal. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate this week. Bye until next time.
Bye, everybody.